Exposed, 8 spine-chilling, haunted trails of Appalachia with unexplained terror, cursed secrets. Clara could feel the weight of the past pressing in on her as she stood in the doorway of the dilapidated house she had once called home. The porch creaked under her feet, each groan a reminder of the many secrets the walls had seen. It was supposed to be a new start, a refuge from a marriage that had turned sour. But this place, infused with nostalgia and pain, felt more like a trap than a sanctuary. Shadows danced in the corners of her vision, each one luring her deeper into a void that held memories and despair. The neighbors waved to her with their warm, familiar smiles, but their eyes were cold, darting away whenever talk of the eerie sound surrounding her home came up. At night, the rustling outside her window turned into whispers, breathless murmurs that sent shivers down her spine. Clara felt the delicate balance of fear and familiarity shift, wrapping around her like a clingy vine. She tried to dismiss it as paranoia, yet each night the trees outside seemed to loom closer, their limbs reaching out as if trying to pull her into darkness. One afternoon, Clara stumbled upon an old family album, hidden away in a dusty corner of the attic. Inside, she found a tattered map, the faint lines marking the 8 cursed trails winding through the Appalachians. Handwritten notes filled the margins, each note more ominous than the last: "Don't wander, beware the whispers, and the trees know." What was once just a piece of paper was now a ticket into a realm filled with terror. Heart racing, she felt a magnetic pull toward the trails, an urge she couldn't shake off. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days bled into nights, and the unsettling noises grew louder. The profound silence was punctuated by a crescendo of unsettling rustles as Clara's fear morphed into urgency. Where was Sophie? The thought twisted her stomach into knots. One evening, Clara stepped out, her breath visible in the cool air. The shadows between the trees seemed thicker, the woods breathing with menace. They called to her, beckoning, each step deeper into the forest echoing her heartbeat. "Sophie!" She called, the sound swallowed by the silence. Heart pounding, she felt branches swiping at her like skeletal fingers. Then she heard a shrill scream that tore through darkness, a sound so chilling it froze her blood. It was mixed with something familiar and unbearably distorted. What had happened to her little girl? Panic surged. She must find Sophie. With desperation clawing at her throat, Clara raced deeper, knowing that each footstep might tether her to something ancient and malevolent beneath the forest floor. She felt the weight of unseen eyes, the townsfolk's secrets intertwining with the whispers of the trees surrounding her as she ventured into the heart of the nightmare. Would she unravel the connections that bound her family to this land, or would the cursed trails consume them both? Branches snapped under Clara's hurried steps, echoing her frenzied heartbeat. The crisp air was thick with fear. Each scream that echoed through the trees was a jagged knife, cutting through the darkness, a siren that could easily lose its way. Every shadow was alive, moving, watching her, and she could swear she sensed them close, as if the forest knew exactly where she was headed. "Sophie!" Her voice cracked, barely recognizable, swallowed by the damp, chilling air. She paused for a moment, listening, hoping to catch the faintest hint of her daughter's voice, yet all she heard was the rustling leaves and the soft hum of the wind, a cruel mockery of happiness lost. The map in her pocket felt like a stone, heavy and cold. She had to find the trail, but which one? The notes had warned her, but they also tugged at something deep inside. What was it about the trails? What dark magic intertwined with the roots that bound them? Clara stumbled into a clearing, a moonlit patch that felt out of place amongst the twisted trees. The silence here was suffocating. She shivered, glancing around, convinced the shadows had grown even darker. In the center of the clearing lay an old stone well, the rim covered in moss, almost blending into the earth itself. There was a sense of dread and understanding that whatever lay beyond the jagged stones was better left untouched. Yet, overcoming caution was a steep hill when your child was missing. With trembling hands, she approached. Edge by edge, she peered over the well, expecting to see darkness, but instead she saw a flicker of movement below. A tiny figure, impossibly small, painted in red. Clara's heart raced. Was it Sophie? "Hold on, honey," Clara called, already feeling the pull of the chill creeping into her bones. She dropped to her knees, her fingers trembling as she reached down, but the subterranean darkness swallowed her voice, muffling the cries she knew would follow. "Mommy." The voice was faint, an echo of a memory, but it felt so close. Tears streamed down Clara's face. "Sophie. Can you hear me?" But another sound broke her concentration, drawing her attention to the shadows. Low whispers floated through the trees, like a gentle wind carrying promises she couldn't quite make out. Suddenly, they crescendoed into frantic, incoherent murmurs. Each syllable felt like a tightening noose, coiling around her thoughts. Then, there it was. A pair of eyes emerged from the deep, glowing faintly like embers, the light piercing through the darkness toward her, reflecting panic and hunger. Clara recoiled, heart racing, pulse thundering. A feeling of dread coursed through her, and knowing that the trees weren't just watching, they were beckoning. The whispers spoke of her past, of Sophie's lost laughter, and Clara could feel the hunger of the forest as if it craved something only she could provide. The well seemed to shift, the air around it thickening a vortex of sorrow and lost dreams. "You must choose," the whispers beckoned, somehow clearer now, carrying the weight of ancient secrets. "Will you seek her in the light or descend to the shadows?" Clara's breath hitched. Time stopped as she realized the chilling truth. The freedom she sought for her daughter could lead to a fate far worse than surrendering to fear. With no immediate answer, all she could do was stare into the well's chilling depths. But the choice was hauntingly clear. Would she venture into the dark, or risk losing Sophie forever? And just as those thoughts grasped her mind, the ground trembled beneath her, a low growl reverberating through the trees. The eyes blinked slowly, the whispers grew louder, and a fear like never before hushed Clara into frozen silence. What would happen next? Would she discover the truth or become another lost whisper in the haunted trails? The ground shuddered again, more violently this time, as if answering her silent plea for a decision. Clara's eyes darted from the well to the ominous trees surrounding her, their branches weaving like skeletal fingers, reaching for her. An overwhelming sense of urgency gripped her, amplifying the pounding in her chest. "Choose." The voices echoed, but they weren't offering clarity. Instead, they tangled her thoughts, forcing her deeper into uncertainty. Was it Sophie trapped down there, or was it a deceptive lure designed to ensnare her soul? The notion twisted in her mind like a vine, suffocating. The well beckoned, its depths filled with secrets that felt more menacing than protective. Frantically, she searched for a sign, any sign, that would guide her through the labyrinth of her decision. Suddenly, a burst of wind swept through the clearing, chilling her to the bone. The faces of the trees morphed slight contortions in the bark that made them almost human, twisted in pain. And then, as if pulled by an unseen force, she leaned closer to the well, drawn not by desperation alone but by a deeper, unshakable instinct. "Sophie." Her voice cracked, desperation spilling out as an offering to the abyss. She knew there was danger in calling out that name. But it flowed uncontrollably, a thread pulled tight. The wind halted abruptly, caught in the tension of the moment. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then, the surface of the well rippled, not with water but with shadows that twisted and turned, whispering alluringly. The vibrant red of the figure blinked into existence again. Clara gasped. "Sophie. Is that you?" Hope flickered in her heart, yet dread coiled tighter. The echoes morphed into laughter, yet it felt wrong, like a melody played in a minor key. Clara gritted her teeth, nails digging into the moss-covered stone. "Mommy," the voice called. It was unmistakably Sophie, and yet the tone slid sideways into something dark. A plea, a warning, a beckoning. Did she dare look further? Swallowing her fear, Clara turned once more to the well. As she peered deeper, the dim glow of the figure faded, replaced by the encroaching darkness of the void. The shadows swirled, cloaking the truth, spinning tales of the lost and the cursed. In that moment, a crack splintered through the silence, the sound of branches breaking, close. Clara whipped around, heart racing, eyes wide with panic. A figure emerged, shrouded in shadow. It was difficult to discern, a person or something else entirely. "Leave her be," it growled, the voice distorted, like gravel scraping against metal. Clara stumbled back, her pulse quickening. The whispers turned to frenzy now, intertwining with a cacophony of jarring laughter. "Who are you?" she demanded, trying to mask the tremor in her voice, but it quivered nonetheless. "I am the guardian of these trails," it hissed, merging with the shadows, becoming one with the forest. "You disrupt the balance. Make your choice, Clara. But be warned, you do not belong here." An agonizing chill slithered up her spine. A vivid image of Sophie flickered in her mind, her small, innocent face smiling as they played tag in the park. The urge to protect surged, she had to save her. But which path led to safety? Every fleeting moment clouded her judgment, twisting her perception into something unrecognizable. Before she could respond, the figure lunged forward, and Clara let out a shriek, stumbling back towards the well's edge. The darkness below seemed to expand and swallow her fears, beckoning her with tender, jagged whispers. Then she felt it. A hand, small, familiar, gripping her wrist from the abyss, fingers slipping through her palm. "Mommy, please." And just like that, the depths of the well throbbed, a heartbeat of its own, as shadows roared back toward her. The choice hung heavy, poised between light and dark, life and soul. Clara's heart raced faster than reason, as the shadows closed in on her. What would she sacrifice for Sophie? As the darkness surged, Clara's mind raced with one last, desperate thought: if she stepped forward, what would follow? Would she emerge into the light or be lost forever in the sprawling shadows? Clara gasped, the cold grip of fear rushing through her veins. The hand from the depths trembled but held tight, urging her closer. She could almost taste the warmth of Sophie's skin against her own. It was a lifeline, yet still lured her into a deceptive dark. "Mommy. I'm scared." The voice echoed, hauntingly distorted and yet heartbreakingly familiar. Clara's chest tightened, torn between instinct and dread, between saving her daughter and the dark power that threatened to consume them both. "No, no, no," she muttered, backing away from the well. Panic clawed at her throat, suffocating her ability to think. The guardian's presence loomed larger, encroaching on her like a predator. She could feel its malice coiling, darkening the space around her. "What do you want?" she shouted, defiance bubbling up, forcing out the fear. "Your choice," it growled again, the words scraping at the edges of her mind. "Life for life. She is offered unless you wish to join her." Clara felt her heart lurch at the chilling proposal. The well seemed to pulse, a deep, rhythmic beat that synchronized with the chaos of her thoughts. Time stretched, each second dragging into eternity. What did it mean? Was Sophie truly trapped? Suddenly, a new sound cut through the tension, a shrill, ghostly cry that sliced the calm. "Help me!" It shrieked louder than the laughter, more desperate than the whispers. Clara's breath hitched. This was no playful game. "Mommy!" The voice from below now trembled with fear, and it shattered the echoing laughter, leaving only silence. Clara took one hesitant step toward the edge, heart pounding as she fought the instinct sending her back. "You have to come down. You said you would always be there." And just like that, dread swallowed her whole. What if this was a clever trap? What if the shadows were right? If she reached down, would she lose Sophie forever, or would she find the truth in the dark? Clara glanced back at the figure concealed in shadows, its eyes glowing like embers, hungry and expectant. The guardian loomed closer, urging her forward. "The choice, Clara." It hissed, its voice like rusted chains rattling with malice. Her breathing quickened. Fears clawed at her, wrestling with memories of laughter shared and joy found. "You're not real," she shouted, hoping desperately for the truth in that proclamation to unravel the nightmare. "What do you want from us?" "Only what is given," it replied, shadows swirling around it as if they were alive. "Sophie, or your soul, a crossroad steeped in blood." The weight of inevitability pressed down, every heartbeat echoing in her ears like a countdown. The darkness, the whispering beckoning her with promises it never intended to fulfill. She had to act. "Let her go!" Clara screamed, clutching her head, feeling the branches around her constrict like a noose. The ground trembled beneath her as if the forest itself were aware of her choice. "You have no power over us." But even as she yelled, doubt crept in, mixing with the shadows. Sophie's frantic cries echoed again, stretching through the void and catching Clara's breath in her throat. Her hand was slipping. "Mommy! Help!" Time fractured. Reality buckled. Clara's resolve crumbled. With a sudden movement, she lunged forward, grasping at the small fingers reaching from the deep, and then everything exploded. A blinding light erupted from the well, a violent force that sent Clara sprawling back. The ground recoiled beneath her, and the shadows shrieked in agony as they were pushed back. In the chaos, Clara's mind raced. What had she unleashed? The air thrummed with energy, the trees shivered, and the guardian bellowed in rage. And there, amidst the brightness, a silhouette flickered, twin shadows dancing, one small and one looming. "Mommy!" The cry rang out again, cutting through everything, but just as hope flared, the light flickered, and darkness closed in. Clara felt herself being pulled back toward the edge. What did she really want? What was this price she had to pay? An icy hand gripped her heart, deepening the void around them. The shadows compacted. Steel thick, as the flicker of light fought desperately to hold them apart. Then, in that anguished moment of uncertainty, a shattering realization pierced through the darkness. Making a choice could mean losing everything. As Sophie's figure faded into the shadows, Clara's world spun into chaos. Would she succumb to the darkness? Or would she dare to fight against the tide of terror? "What will you do now?" whispered the shadows, a malignant promise swirling around her. The ground beneath Clara seemed to quake anew, leaving her teetering at the edge of an impossible decision. Would she make that leap into the unknown or risk everything to save what was left? The forest held its breath waiting. The light dimmed, flickering like a dying star as Clara struggled to break free from the grip of despair. Shadows writhed and twisted around her, their malevolent whispers clawing at her sanity. She was poised on the brink, a precipice between the known world and an abyss teeming with sinister possibilities. Sophie's voice echoed again, fragile and pleading, slicing through the suffocating gloom. "Mommy! Don't let them take me!" Clara's heart raced, pounding like a war drum at the back of her skull. Each cry pulled her deeper into the darkness, the weight of her choice pressing down like a leaden stone. "I want to let you go," she shouted, but her voice trembled, doubt flooding her. What if her bravery condemned them both? The ground shifted beneath her feet as the guardian, a twisted entity of shadows and malice, advanced. Its eyes gleamed like polished knives, and a chilling smile spread across its distorted face. "You must choose, Clara," it hissed, each word dripping from its lips like venom. "Your daughter's life hangs on your willingness to give in to the darkness." With a surge of adrenaline, she wrenched herself back from the edge. She had to find a way. The light had shown her there was still a chance. But as she stepped away, the ground quaked violently, and the trees around her groaned, their branches reaching out, as if seeking to ensnare her like the dark figures that circled. "Mommy! Please!" The plea, a haunting echo in the thickening air, pulled at her heartstrings, fraying the edges of her resolve. No. I want to let you win. She spun around, glaring at the shadowed figure. You don't own me. You don't own her. Her defiance ignited a fire within, illuminating the newfound strength she didn't know she possessed. The guardian paused, its twisted smile faltering as her words struck home. You think your will can withstand the darkness? You're wrong. In that instant, the ground beneath her erupted in a swirl of shadows, a vortex that threatened to swallow her whole. Clara clenched her fists, desperation coursing through her veins like ice. She had to face it. To reclaim Sophie, she had to confront the very thing she feared. With a piercing scream, Clara lunged towards the well, her feet pounding against the earth as she steadied her breath. She could see her daughter's shadow flailing against the dark, desperately reaching for her. I'm coming, Sophie. As she dove, a wave of darkness crashed around her, curling against her skin, seeping into her mind. Whispers filled the air, clawing at her thoughts. Join us, Clara. Join us forever, they beckoned, seductive and dark, but Clara pushed the voices away, her love for Sophie anchoring her. I choose light. I choose life. The words erupted from her in a forceful declaration as she plunged into the well's depths. That in an instant, the embrace of darkness turned to cold, harsh light. She was engulfed, a wild tempest of colors swirling around her. Mommy. Sophie's voice broke through, stronger now, urgent. Clara's own heart thudded violently in her chest as she fought against the relentless tide of shadow and light, straining to reach the figure that seemed to shimmer at the center. Just as she grasped a hand soft and warm, everything shattered. The world folded in upon itself, colors swirling into a cacophony of sound and fury. Clara realized with horror that she was not alone. Shadows surged around her, clawing at her soul, eager to pull her down into their eternal embrace. Mommy. Sophie cried again, now tinged with panic. I'm scared. It's dark. The shadowy figures twisted around Clara, entwining her thoughts in a vice-like grip. You'll never escape. You've given in. You're ours now. But deep within, a flicker of hope ignited. A primal urge to protect surged through her, galvanizing her spirit, a defiance that whispered, you can fight this. As she and Sophie fought against the burgeoning chaos, a shadow swept forward, its shapeless shape coiling around her like a serpent. What will you sacrifice? It rasped, taunting her, testing her resolve. Clara's breath hitched. A sacrifice? What more could she give? The bond binds. Echoed through her mind, the guardian's voice reverberating, sinister and triumphant. If you desire her life, then you must relinquish your own. It demanded, gripping her heart with icy fingers. In that heart-stopping moment, an unsettling clarity pierced the chaos. Her soul or Sophie's, what was left to lose? What would she choose in this labyrinth of dark and light? The shadows closed in rapidly, breathing smoke and malice, waiting for her answer. A decision loomed, a choice that could echo through eternity. With the weight of the world pressing against her, Clara had to know, what was the true price of love? Clara felt the shadow wrap around her, constricting like a python squeezing the last breath of life from its prey. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of despair piercing through the chaos, each voice echoing the doubts clawing at her heart. You will pay, Clara. You must pay. Shut up. I want to give in. She screamed, the sound swallowed by the swirling maelstrom of darkness. Her thoughts were spiraling, each word a frantic plea to break free. But as she clutched Sophie's soft hand, the darkness threatened to consume them both. Mommy, I'm scared. Sophie's voice trembled, and Clara felt her heart crack. I'm here. I'm here. Clara shouted back, forcing her voice through the thickening gloom. She focused on the warmth of Sophie's hand, a beacon guiding her through the suffocating dark. We'll find a way out. But the shadows sidled up to her, edging closer, their breath hot and rancid. You cannot escape your fate, Clara. Suddenly, something shifted in the darkness. A memory crashed into her mind, sharp and vivid. The tales her grandmother used to tell about the shadows in the woods, creatures that thrived on fear and despair, sucking the very joy from the air. The thought jolted her. Hadn't she always dismissed those stories? Superstitions meant to frighten children? What if they were true? Give me your light. The guardian hissed, the offer dripping with malice. Let me take what belongs to me. No. Clara's voice reverberated against the walls of her mind, defiance wiping the sweat from her brow. You can't have her. You can't have either of us. With every ounce of her being, she summoned her memories of Joy Sophie giggling in the park, their shared moments over pancakes on lazy Sundays, stories read just before bed. Each memory glowed brighter against the encroaching darkness, pushing it back, like the dawn pushing away the night. The entity shrieked, fighting against the light spilling from Clara's heart. Foolish girl. You think memories can save you? They are just remnants of the past. They are all I have. Clara shouted back. And I will never let them go. Not to you. With renewed vigor, Clara reached for her daughter's other hand, weaving their fingers together. She wouldn't let go. Together, they were strong. Together, they could pull through, but then Sophie's grip faltered. Clara turned, heart pounding as she saw her daughter's face twisted in fear, fading like a mirage in the desert. Mommy. No. Clara shot forward, grasping for Sophie just as the shadows surged, clawing at her with an insatiable hunger. She felt their tendrils wrapping around her ankles, holding her back. An unbearable pressure enveloped her chest. The guardian loomed larger, its gaping maw ready to swallow them whole. Then it struck her a realization that could change everything. What if she could sever their connection to that realm? If those shadows fed on fear, then perhaps she could turn that fear against them. Listen. Clara cried out, focusing her energy, her belief in love and resilience. You cannot take us. We are light and life. You cannot have us. The shadows writhed, recoiling as if she had struck them. No. What are you doing? The guardian shrieked, its voice a razor-sharp edge cutting through the dark. With every ounce of strength, Clara visualized their bond, an unbreakable light radiating from their entwined hands, illuminating the darkness around them. Leave us. She spat, fierceness erupting from her soul. We choose hope. We choose each other. The shadows roared in fury, the vortex around them convulsing violently. Clara felt the pull of the darkness relent, just for a moment as light pierced through the veil of night. But the ground still buckled beneath her feet, a reminder that this fight was far from over. Clara. Mommy. Sophie's voice called, echoing through the chaos, trembling. Clara turned and saw something else, a flicker of light rising in the distance, beyond the mass of shadows. Look! She shouted, pointing towards the ethereal glow. We can reach it. But even as she spoke, the darkness roared again, more furious than ever. Lashing out at their feet, threatening to swallow them once more. Will you fight, or will you yield? The guardian hissed, seething with malice and rage. Clara's resolve hardened. We will fight. No longer just for survival, it was for love. Love that pulsed through her veins. With a new surge of determination, she and Sophie made a dash for the light. The shadows surged forward, desperate to reclaim them, whispering sweet nothings of despair. Clara could feel the chill enveloping her soul, urging her to turn back, to give in, to surrender. But the light pulsed, drawing her closer. Would they make it? Would love be enough? The guardian's roar filled the air, mingling with Sophie's frightened whimpers. The wall between light and shadow was closing fast. Together, they leapt towards the light. But would it be salvation, or a trap? The answer lay just beyond the dark. The moment they plunged toward the light, every fiber of Clara's being tingled with dawning hope. But as they crossed the threshold, the shadows lunged, fingers of darkness grasping at Sophie's feet. Clara felt her heart race, panic flooding her veins. No! She yanked on Sophie's hand, desperately pulling them forward, feeling the pull of the shadows like a riptide trying to drag them under. The light shimmered brighter, yet it flickered, as if battling the encroaching darkness. Clara almost screamed in frustration, her mind racing. Not now. Not like this. As they surged forward, time slowed. For each step, shadows clawed and gnawed at their heels, whispering the darkest secrets and fears. You abandoned her. You're not worthy of love. Clara's breath quickened. We're more than this. We're stronger. We're a family. The glow intensified, but a swirling mass formed around them, a whirlpool of shadows determined to swallow them whole. The guardian's visage twisted and morphed, eyes glinting with malicious delight. You think you can break free? I am your past. I am your guilt. No! Clara shouted, her voice a jagged knife cutting through the air. You are nothing. You have no power here. Bolstered by a surge of adrenaline, she pushed her fear and despair aside, channeling it into raw energy. With one powerful leap, she positioned herself between Sophie and the onslaught of shadows, a human shield against the relentless torment. The heat of the light glowed brighter with her fierce defiance. We choose each other. She cried, the words resonating as if they were a chant, summoning every moment of joy she'd ever experienced. Voices of laughter and love filled her heart, merging into a torrent of blinding brightness. The shadows hissed and howled, recoiling as if burned. Fool! Your memories cannot protect you. Yet Clara felt the warmth seeping into her cold bones. It wrapped around her, a protective cocoon that shielded her from the dark. Something strange began to happen. The light morphed and twisted, forming shapes that reached out toward the shadows. Figures from her memories came to life, the echoes of loved ones past, woven with fabric and thread only she could see. Her grandmother, her friends, even Sophie's giggle sounded louder now, echoing hope through the darkness, sharp and pure. Love is our weapon. Clara shouted, forging ahead. And you've underestimated it. But even as hope bloomed, Clara trembled. Was this power enough? The dark enveloped them again, a living entity determined to fetch its due. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled violently. Clara stumbled, but Sophie held fast to her side, eyes ablaze with fierce trust. We can do it, Mommy. I believe. Sophie's voice rang out like a bell in the darkness, cutting through the chaos. The shadows paused, momentarily bewildered. Their bond, so strong and profound, became a solid platform to stand on, a fortress amidst the uncertainty. You're right. Clara shouted, igniting a brave smile. Their hands tightened, the warmth cascading between them, igniting more integrated bursts of light, scattering the shadows momentarily. But the guardian bellowed in rage, its voice a thunderclap. You think you're free? Your joy feeds my strength. Clara's breath hitched, momentarily caught in fear. That realization struck her. The guardian fed off them. The more they felt, the stronger it became. No! She roared defiantly, drawing on that fear, transforming it instead into something else. Something greater. This ends now. The guardian's cries spurred her forward, to dismantle the very foundation upon which their bond was built. You are nothing but shadows. She yelled into the swirling depths. The ground quaked again, only this time the walls pulsated with energy, shadows flickering in fright. Clara and Sophie pressed on, refusing to yield, illuminating the abyss with every brave step, but then darkness surged back with terrifying ferocity, swallowing everything in its wake, pulling Clara off balance. The light faltered, swirling painfully. Crying out, she felt the energy draining from their grasp. No! Not again. Clara turned, searching for the flicker of hope, fighting against the unseen grip holding her down. But was it slipping away? Hesitation rolled through her like a chill, shooting ice into her veins. This was becoming a battle not just for survival, but to reclaim what was lost, to refuse being prisoners of this hateful legacy. A darkness thicker than before coiled around them, whispering sinister promises. The light is a trick, a mere candle against a storm. Despair clung to Clara, but she bit down hard, the taste of iron in her mouth fueling her fight. I want to let you take my family. But could they escape? Could they break free from the relentless grip of terror that sought to pull them into eternal night? As the shadows surged forth, Clara's heart pounded, reliance on the flicker of light growing dimmer. Just ahead, the glimmer of salvation danced but felt so tantalizingly out of reach. What awaited them if they reached it? Or if they didn't, would hope triumph over darkness? Or would they be lost forever? The darkness roared, waves of despair crashing over Clara and Sophie like a monstrous tide. Clara's heart thundered in her chest, each beat echoing the rhythm of her dread. It consumed her, a living entity tugging at her memories, gnawing at their hope. No. We want to let you win. Her voice, though defiant, trembled on the edge of panic. The crushing weight of the dark loomed large, an evil breathing down their necks, and for a moment, she faltered. What do we do, Sophie? Sophie's grip tightened, her little hand warm and steady in Clara's trembling grasp. We keep fighting, Mommy. We believe. Her eyes glimmered with a spirit unbroken, a fragile flame flickering against the suffocating night, but the shadows, relentless and cold, surrounded them like a thick fog, straining to envelop their light. Clara's vision blurred, an echo of her own fear replaying in a sinister whisper. You are alone, you are lost. Gritting her teeth, Clara surged forward, propelled by Sophie's unwavering conviction. We'll fight together. She shouted again, the words carrying a fierce urgency. She could feel the shadows recoiling, the sounds of their hisses like the boiling of an angry sea. But they were gaining strength. The shadows swirled in ravenous hunger, clawing at the edges of their light, burrowing into the cracks of their resolve. Clara took a deep breath, drawing from the memories of laughter, warmth, and love that flooded her mind. She needed to feed that light, to amplify it. Look, Sophie. Clara pointed ahead, where a faint glow flickered like a distant star. That's our way out. We have to reach it. In response, the shadows shrieked, a cacophony of anger that vibrated through the ground. Clara steadied herself as the darkness trembled, sinking to their knees as shadows rushed to hold them in place. Let go. We have to keep moving. She yelled, pulling against the tightening grip, but felt it slice into her skin like icy fingers closing around her throat. Panic settled like a stone in her stomach. Would they really be lost in this living nightmare? No. Sophie yelled, her brightness burning through Clara's doubt. I'm not afraid. Clara's breath caught. They were still moving. With each reaffirming shout, Sophie pulled Clara back from the brink of despair. You have to believe in us. It was that moment, her daughter's fierce declaration cutting through the thick air, that recalibrated Clara's resolve. She felt the bond between them solidify, duplicating their strength. Together. She cried, the word coming out as a rallying CRY.an explosion of light erupted around them as they surged forward. The shadows reeled, momentarily blinded. Clara pushed through the darkness, Sophie right behind her, their fear igniting into a beacon of defiance. Stay close. Clara urged, dodging the tendrils of darkness that snapped at her heels. Each step was a battle, the space around them seemed to stretch and pull, but Clara kept her focus on that shimmering light. The guardian's wails rumbled like thunder, furious at their audacity to challenge him. You will pay for this insolence. The shadows curled around her, threatening to pull her back into despair. No more. Clara shouted, her voice growing louder, infused with a power that felt like fire in her veins. You don't own us. We are not your prisoners. With one final lunge, Clara reached for the light ahead. She felt it pulsing, alive, anticipation crackling in the air. They were almost there. But then, a shadow lunged from behind, catching her ankle, dragging her to the ground with an unforgiving jolt. "Mommy!" Sophie screamed, her little voice piercing through the fury of the storm. In a split second, Clara was torn between the struggle to free herself and the instinct to reassure Sophie. "I'm here. I'm coming." The critical moment stretched into eternity, the shadows clawing at her senses, tugging her back into the darkness, but then, the light pierced back, radiating into a spectrum of colors she never imagined. She felt warmth envelop her heart, a pulsing rhythm syncing perfectly with Sophie's unyielding belief. "Please. Not now, not again." As she pulled against the binding darkness, whispers filled the air. It was the echo of her past, a mix of regret and pain that threatened to unravel her. "You can't escape what you've done," but just beyond that curtain of doubt, sunlight ignited memories of joy, laughter, and love. The push and pull of pain and radiance battled fiercely, giving rise to a whirlwind. Then, in an instant, Clara envisioned her grandmother's smile, her laughter ringing clear. She channeled that light, and suddenly, it was as if the shadows fractured, exposed. "We are more than you." She felt the cool grip against her ankle recede, but the darkness twisted and roared, anger boiling over. "This isn't over." It squalled, a guttural growl echoing in her ears. Just as they were about to reach the light, Clara felt a horrifying tremor beneath them. The ground melted, every sense teetering. What if the way out was an illusion? "Mommy, don't let go," Sophie said, her small voice trembling as another wave of darkness surged toward them, dark and pulsating. "What if this is just the beginning?" Clara thought, staring into the light that flickered tantalizingly, a doorway into hope that threatened to slip away. Would they escape, or would they succumb to an even greater darkness looming ahead? As every ounce of strength surged with desperation, the shadows gathered for one final assault. Clara's heart raced against a backdrop of chaos. The ground quaked and she felt the world rippling, as if it were a fabric ready to tear. Sophie clung to her, her little face twisted with worry and determination. The dark surged again, a creeping mass that threatened to swallow them whole. "Hold on to me," Clara shouted, her voice tense. She didn't dare look back, every instinct told her that whatever lurked there was worse than what lay ahead. The flicker of light danced tantalizingly in the distance, like a siren calling them closer. Each step felt monumental, the shadows snapping aggressively, their shrieks escalating as if enraged by their bravery. "You think you can escape? You are nothing. You belong to us." Clara shivered at the voices encroaching on her sanity, but she focused on Sophie. "Just keep believing, Sophie. We're almost there." Her breath was ragged, straining at the edges of her resolve. The light ahead beckoned, its warmth melting the oppressive chill surrounding them. But with every inch gained, the darkness clawed back with ferocity. Clara stumbled, her foot slipping in the shifting ground as she felt the dread glomming back on her like heavy oil. "And Mommy?" Sophie's voice quivered, a crack in her brave facade. The shadows circled them like vultures, waiting for the moment of weakness, and Clara could feel that moment creeping in, creeping closer. "No!" she roared, pulling herself upright. "Not now." As if answering her defiance, the darkness pulsed, thick and alive. Figures formed, grotesque shapes twisting through the dark, a mirror of her fears, lost loved ones, faces she had abandoned or those that had abandoned her. "Look at what you've created," they whispered. "You'll never break free from this, from us." Images of the past rose unbidden. Memories of neglect and sorrow, choices she wished she could erase. Clara gritted her teeth, the shadows feasted on her guilt. "You're not real," she screamed, forcing her feet to move. Sophie's grip felt slick with fear, but Clara wouldn't let go. The light pulsed faster, and Clara felt a tightness in her chest. It was unbearable, a darkness trying to claw its way inside, making a home of her heart. We are stronger than this, she shouted, channeling everything she held dear into her voice. Memory after memory lit her resolve. Mama's hugs, Sophie's laughter, then she heard it, a sound rising above the chaos. A soft chime, gentle yet insistent, like a bell. "Mommy, I hear it!" Sophie exclaimed, her eyes lighting up with newfound strength. "It's south, so close." Desperation coursed through Clara, pouring heat into her veins. "Together. Let us go." With every ounce of power, they surged forward, breaking through the encroaching shadows. Clara felt the gnarled tendrils of darkness beginning to snap, feelers stretching, recoiling as if burned. But just as they broke the edge, a cold hand shot out from the darkness, curling around Clara's wrist. Panic speared through her. It felt clammy, moist, like a snake wrapped around her. "You thought you could leave?" it hissed, drawing her back from the brightness ahead. "No. Not again." Clara screamed, pulling against it with everything she had. The warmth from the light was almost there, she could taste it. It spurred her forward. "Mommy!" Sophie tugged her fiercely. The child's voice was unwavering, igniting something deep within Clara, pure tenacity. "Let go of her!" Sophie cried, striking out at the shadow with her small fists, the power of innocence and love crashing against the darkness. With a loud, agonized noise, the grip loosened. Clara stumbled forward, Sophie at her side, as they pushed towards the sanctuary of light. An explosion of color enveloped them, an ethereal brilliance that washed away the remnants of fear. But even in that embrace, shadows lurked at the edges. Suddenly, everything fell silent. The light dimmed momentarily, as if something was about to rise up from the ashes. The cold hush hung like a heavy weight in the air, thick with anticipation. "Mommy, what is happening?" Sophie whispered, her voice laced with dread. Clara looked back toward the darkness, the shadows twisting and roiling, but she felt a shift, a pulse of something darker returning. Something more sinister than before. What if it's not over? Clara thought, her pulse quickening as she held Sophie tightly. With a crack, the shadows began to coalesce. They shifted, forming shapes that were all too familiar, a horde of desperate spirits, their eyes glowing with malice. "Know that this isn't the end." A whisper slithered through the air, curling around them like smoke. Clara's heart stopped. The darkness was returning, thicker, heavier. She could feel the eyes watching, waiting. "Mommy!" Sophie's small voice trembled. "Stay with me." Clara growled, her grip tightening as she stood in the haze of uncertainty, the clash of light and dark battling for dominance. What if the real fight had only just begun? The darkness swelled around them, pressing closer than ever, full of relentless fury. Would they thrive in this final confrontation, or would the shadows snuff out their light entirely? Clara's heart raced as shadows loomed closer, thick and suffocating, twisting and howling, determined to envelop her and Sophie once more. The voices rose, a chilling chorus, clawing at her resolve. "You are nothing. You are lost. You have abandoned yourselves." "No!" Clara roared, their cries igniting a fire in her chest. "We are more than this. We will not be your prey." She could feel Sophie's warmth next to her, grounding her amidst the rising tide of darkness. Every moment spent fighting, every scream echoed in the air. They had battled too long, endured too much to give in now. With a fierce determination, Clara glanced at Sophie, whose tiny face glimmered with a ferocious spirit. "We'll face this together," she promised, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling around them. "No more running. We fight." Taking a deep breath, she focused on the glimmer of hope each step toward the light had ignited. With hearts intertwined, they moved forward. The shadows recoiled as if a bright light had pierced through their core, and Clara realized the balance was shifting. "We choose love. We choose each other." Clara shouted, the words ringing with strength that reverberated through the gloom. Just then, the air shimmered, a surge of warmth enveloping them as the ground beneath shifted restlessly, like it too felt the quake of emotions battling within. As Clara continued fighting through the current, she noticed the shadows thrashing wildly, anger morphing into desperation. Memories began flooding back, her grandmother's wise words, Sophie's laughter, everything that made life worth living. The more she thought of those memories, the more power pulsed through her veins. "Remember the love, Sophie," Clara breathed, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Never doubt our connection. It's unbreakable." Each word was fuel, igniting the love that wrapped around them like a protective cloak. "Yes, Mommy. We can do it," Sophie echoed. Together, they advanced towards the light, hearts synchronized, a beacon pushing back against despair. But just when it seemed they might break free, the ground quivered again, shadows lunging fiercely, coiling around Clara's ankles. "You think love can save you?" the guardian hissed, the grotesque figure looming larger, eyes glowing with fierce hunger. "My legions will drown you." Clara glanced back, seeing the shadows thrashing with fury. "I want to let you take her. We are stronger," she shouted back defiantly. With a furious cry, Clara bent down, grabbing stones from the ground. "These are our memories. We'll turn them into our weapons." She hurled the stones into the thick mist and shadows, each struck a mark of defiance, shattering the dark. "Look out!" Sophie squealed, pointing as the growing tide of light flickered brighter, a response to Clara's fury. "Yes. We're breaking the spell," Clara shouted in encouragement. The shadows howled in pain, the sound reverberating against her soul, but was drowned out by the chorus of love and memories Clara harnessed. "Together, we can drive them out," Clara urged, readying another stone. She found strength as they hurled more stones, each one lighting the dark deeper, until a blinding wave burst forth, cascading over them in brilliant illumination. The darkness shrieked, spiraling back into the abyss, their cries of rage blending into the winding winds, a storm departing. The tiny figures, remnants of those lost souls, flickered within the light, as if begging for liberation and acknowledgement, leaving Clara breathless. "Mommy!" Sophie cheered, tears glistening in her bright eyes as light from the depths melted shadows like ice. They ran, hand in hand, the historic ground shifting, splintering beneath them, revealing subtle trails of the past. Step by step, they emerged, breaking free of the daunting darkness that had once ensnared them. Finally, they stepped through the barrier into a clearing bathed in golden sunlight. "We did it!" Clara gasped, falling to her knees, overwhelmed with joy. Sophie flung herself into her mother's arms, laughter spilling over like an eternal spring. Clara closed her eyes. Feeling the weight of relief wash over her like a wave, the embrace of love wrapping around them both. But behind them, shadows faltered at the edge of the clearing, a swirl of darkness lingering like a memory. Clara stood tall, defiance roaring inside her. "This place belongs to the light now. You will not take anyone else. Your reign is over." The remnants of the past congealed, hesitating at the border of the light. The guardian stood at the edge, a figure cracking, expanding, and imploding, trapped between worlds, realizing that love was an ever stronger force than the despair it fueled. "Look, Mommy!" Sophie squealed, pointing at the retreating darkness. "It's fading." "Yes, it is," Clara murmured, the shadows recoiling as they dissolved into wisps of nothingness. "Let them fade. Love is stronger than fear." And as the sun rose higher, casting warmth that touched their skin, Clara faced forward, holding Sophie close. That was their truth. Fighting for one another, they had reclaimed their light, banished the darkness, and emerged victorious. Clara whispered softly, "Together, we write our own story." Together, they walked towards the future, hand in hand, ready for whatever lay ahead. After all they had endured, they found solace in one unwavering truth: they were free. Now remember, if you want to dive deeper into more spine-chilling tales like this, you need to subscribe now. Hit that wrong button and you'll miss out on exclusive stories. And smash the like button, help me feed the algorithm so we can reach more fans like you. Flood the comments below. I want to hear your thoughts. What did you think of the ending? And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us spread the word together.